This is Arukh Yardeh Simon Hey, Sif Ches to Mem Gimel. And today is supplemental day 202 of the HaShulchan Yomi. Lamed Ches, Kosar Rabbeinu Rabbi says to Sif Ches. Oh, they're backdrop in the past few days, but still in the same place in Detroit, different room. Kosar Rabbeinu Rabbi says to Sif Ches, Rabbi says, writes, Reish Ein L'Chatucha De Une Treifa. A lung which does not have the distinct segments or sections of lobes is treif. When Sarah Kamara and Kamara have fresh benam, if there is a crack, which looks like it's a distinction between lobes, kishur hadas, and it's the size of the a leaf of hadas, ben beikron ben bemta, whether it's at the root, middle, ben besofmer, at the end, ksher akan shor. Those who say it's okay even if it's not the size of the leaf of hadas. Here's the Mukhayim have some Rubel Lahatrif. Relying that if it's going to be a substantial loss, it'll make a trade. Clubs came Badav Das Rashi Zal Shakosav Zel Shoro. They assume that this is the Pshan Rashi there, Daf Mebzayim and Beis Chulin, who writes as follows. Where it's not, they're not severed in an absolute severance. V'sedek elakamin mar and with a crack. Elakamin mar havresh nikabo. It just looks separate. Nik shera, that's sufficient. It's unconscionable. Now it's number mode. Really astonishing Rashi. Hechon before Rashi, the Sagi B'Koshu doesn't say kosher is sufficient. Rashi lo kamer el lo min chituch v'sedek gomer. Just they don't need to have a distinctiveness, a separation, and a complete crack. El sedek kav, but only a light crack. Shea rak nikar should be recognizable. But shea sedek lo kamer. He's not talking about what the measure of the sedek has to be, what the measure crack is. You already teach me the gam il lo kamer rak b'reish ein b'chituch unos klau chazinan. He says seems to be HaShulchan. It is only talking about a lung which does not have distinct lobes at all. Because we check gam per koshu, gam say koshu. If it doesn't have look at my record. I guess even there's a small crack, that's sufficient. It's considered to be normal growth. If it's missing a lung, not along the lobe or two, you can't permit this just by the simon, the sign of a crack. Shame book shear doesn't have the proper shear of the lobe. As far as the custom marshal. Marshal writes, it doesn't write this where you're lacking lobe. Those are the ones there's no difference. Even if it's missing an una altogether, it's okay, but there's a small crack, which can be considered that separate una. That's Gushach. And the Kom Ladina Ganken nearly Ikar, which Gusab nevertheless it seems it says Ocean seems that only where you have the lobes, but they're not separate, that a crack is effective, but not where you don't have the lobes, that you can divide all the lobes in parts based on aesthetic. Can't go to the claim, the twist showing she saw this right this outcome Maria una cloud. Also, if there's no form of lobes whatsoever, a minute crack is insufficient. Sarkian. Pashu Shasedek Circlios Makush Deklios Shama Futsal. Sabbath said the crack is being placed in one of the long branches off. Avashaya Prakir was talking animalim, other cracks that do not suffice. That's Msima Chadasha. Lamdas, Yesh Mishot Lachmir Od, those who are more stringent, the Hecker Sedek Turk Stacy Panos. And to have separate tubes going to the two lobes, so to speak, lobes, one at each side of the crack. You can't go Shane Maxim on Echo, they check only one tube. The crack is not effective. Simla Chadasha. There's no source to this distinction. But Zul Kama Gdalim and Seba Gdalim have complained against Simla Chadasha. The Shol and Bush is right. Marshal, no matter which way you look at it. Totally best phone. The primary issue is having a tube. Yom Chazal, the Chazal say, check the tubes. And in fact, we'll see that separate tubes is effective. It's clear that this has to have a crack. has nothing to do, or crevice has nothing to do with um, uh, nothing to do with the tube. Shafir Barkoloma Surak Simon Echim, but only found one tube between the two lobes. Ain Lachmir, when it should not be Maka Kimche Sheker said it because there's the recognition of having the crack. Those who want stringent Shasek certainly goes to Omek. Gankin is assured that the crack has to be a certain depth. Sima Chadash on the cloud, it's not clear at all. Think much time Bashir Sedek Barakah, but with Asa Kosher. I think so he wrote that when there's a lengthwise split, even the size of a hadas leaf, it's kosher. Bracket says Choza Divrei Sima Chadash V'Sidar. Choza Divrei Sima Chadash V'Sidar. Everything right there. Ein Lo Havana has no way of understanding. Moshe Bush is called in Hey. There's a Bush is a difficulty with him. The Sima Chadasha, but Ikram Mishkosavnon, the primary thing is what we wrote. Meister Bazanakama, there's a story in ancient times, in Rhinus, in the Rhine area. She shocked the Par Shmela, and shocked the fat cow, Lomatu, by Rev Lobo, Uma. They find in the cow not a regular lobe, Uma not a basal lobe, Lobarda, not the Varda. But Roshim said, no crack. There was a certain person there who was a bodek who checked animals for favors. He took a sharp knife and cut through the upper membrane. But also in other words, the membrane which is woven over the lung. But and he would peel back and skin it slowly. And they set aside the entire upper layer from on top of it. But and they saw the lung was like any other lung. We should know machshuv. It's a taz named the Marshav. So Maisa the Rhinus. And he's called this is the famous Rhinus story which is mentioned several places. Memav Okas Rabbi Ramah writes as follows. Huna Tachtena Shemin, the lower una on the right, darker Lios Ava Arukh. It's normally thicker and longer than the middle una. Come here to go to show small, and it is also higher up than left una. If it's completely connected to the uma, but we see a heck of these siman, these cracks and such like. Where there should be the una mikre hecker, that's called a sign. It's question. So it's true there's some other siman. Shikun in some way in which the lobe is recognized at least a little bit. Even the way the sign is through the large tube, which is supposed to be an una. And you find this tube in a place that's normal to have that una. It's called a hecker, so recognizable. All these things we check and we ascertain after we inflate the lung. Because in the animal's lifetime, the lung is inflated. Those who are all these money, the Levad Hecker said except for the cognition of a crack. That's a Yam Shishleima. Certainly the entire lung has no form of lobes. The Zel Damil Ufta Gemara is a similar case of Ufta Gemara. Lama Rakika said there you need to have cracks. Aber B'chasa Una, but missing Una, Brian Simona Elu, Simonim, Shir Lahega, she, he, Una, Chaseh, this location in the lung is where the missing Una is. Vada Yesh Lismocha, their question, definitely rely on this. For me, we say the Shinisuku Zel that they clung to each other. So from the top to the end, as the Shachar Bicharish. Omer, the Dafka Una Uma Mahani Suman. Those who say that only from Una to Uma does Sumani work. And Sumani, Una not from lobe to lobe. Ain't okay, it's not true. There's no distinction. Ben Ima Una, and also between the Ben Una, sorry. Una between the lobes, it's effective as well. Those are other simanim. To clarify, there's two different unos. That's the basic frame. But only go by the Ramah. certainly if the checker is an expert. And we recognize this by his great adeptness. Looking at this long Shnechser Una. So he said, Uno, maybe Numaki Bakuso. And he understands and knows with his being conversing with his halachas. Shnei Unos Nibuku Zeh, that two Unos are clinging to each other. Whatever simon he has. Shita Shechel Yismol Al Zeh. Idei Shez Chacham. The Abba's line is knowledge and what he brings perception by asking Chacham Sheskimu Yishneim, the two of them should agree. Shehem Shnei Unos, that the two lobes here, Yakshur and Shemachshur. I was Simone Shabana P. Rabbeinu Ramak Kol Bodek Muchel Kol Yismol Al Zeh Batzmo. The other Simone we said every checker who is an expert should rely upon it for himself, not for some sufficient, I guess. No, there's just lying to himself. Yeah, whatever it's considered to be a simon, it's going to be a simon. That's all.